I'm just going to talk a little about this water-soluble stabilizer fabric type or fleece type, because that's the one I use when I make my lace objects, the little birds. The little birds here that are just released in my shop. In my tutorial for the birds, I tell that I use a double layer of this material. However, this morning I will try to see if one layer should be adequate. So I have hooped very tightly my hoop with this water-soluble solid fleece, and now I use a smart thing that a friend, Dr. Falkenberg, donated to me, these T-pins. I use them to secure the tightness of the stabilizer around my hoop in between the inner and the outer hoop. Maybe you can see here. That way the material can't move during stitch out. And that is actually the issue with making lace and why the stabilizer has to be so tight, because to make them elegant and not with very heavy satin stitches around the mesh, I think it is most important that the stabilizer is firm. That was Skipper you heard out there. So let's see how it goes. I will get back to you. When making these lace designs, it's very important that you have the same color of thread as your bobbin and as your top. This one is a variegated thread. So I will put this one in, and the reason why it has to be the same color of thread is obviously because we want the lace objects to be just as beautiful on the back side. I'm going to try to push this one layer of water-soluble fabric type stabilizer to the limit, as I have now gathered the birdhouse ×4 in my hoop. So it is really important that my stabilizer stays where it is. So I think I'll get another T-pin. Well, they're a bit far away, so I'll just borrow one of these and put over at the other side here to make sure that this is also kept tight during stitch out. Now I'll find my 4 birdhouses and stay put for a little while yet, because I'm going to show you how I put a layer of mylar under the mesh. That is of course optional. If you have mylar or shiny foil, you can do it without as well, because the mesh is freestanding, so the houses will be just as fine without the mylar. Just a second. I want my first house to be blue, so I've chosen this clear iridescent mylar because it actually makes it possible for the thread to shine through a lot, and it takes color from the thread used. Now I'll start the machine and take care that my fingers are not punched by the needle. There is a small fold here to the mylar, but actually that doesn't matter because it won't be visible at the end of the project. So as you can see, I simply put on the mylar and let the machine do the work with the mesh. Now the stitching is done, and you can see here the mylar is below the stitches, and I carefully tear off the excess mylar around the piece. I could have been a bit more economical with the material, but I didn't want it to be of skew so that you would have to see that. The center here, I will take that later because it's difficult to do without interfering with the tightness of the mesh. So I'll leave that for now and move on to the next house in another color. Till later. I love to mix various kinds of threads. So for the satin lines here, exemplifying that these birdhouses are made from logs, I have used a matte regular embroidery, sewing machine thread, polyester sewing machine thread. I think it makes a great effect together with the shiny mylar, or if you use metallic thread instead for the mesh. So I really like mixing various kinds of threads. Now you can see all my houses here in the hoop, and still my my stabilizer is quite tight. I think it's thanks to the T-pins that I put in at the beginning. We'll be back later when I'm going to start the roofs. Oh, by the way, I actually, with my pointed scissor, carefully removed the leftover mylar in the holes here, so that they are ready for the next step to be outlined with the satin. While my machine is rattling away in the next door room, I'll show you how I make the hooks for my birds. I make big ones, and then I make the little rings for attaching on the bird itself. I use this is my kitchen tool, and it is made of metal. That way it's very sturdy, and I can use it for making a lot of hooks at the same time. I simply roll this pretty sturdy metal wire. I think it's, my guess that's 0.8 in gauge or something. You can see it here, yeah. And then I cut the thread with 2 loops to make one of these hooks. As you can see here, 2 loops, and then I just unfold it like this, so it becomes sort of an S. And then I take my round plier, this one with the round legs, and I make a nice swirl to one of the ends to attach to the bird. And here you can see I've already made the little rings. They are single rings. I've made them and attached them at the back of the bird. As you can see here, there is an opening, but they are joined very close together. Maybe you can see it, I hope you can see it, so that it won't open, and I will put the opening at the side. That way I can just enter my newly made hook into the bird, and it's ready to go on a branch or in my mobile or wherever I want it. Back again, and now you can see that the outlines of the houses have been made here, the satin outlines here, and everything is still in place, very perfect. The important thing is when you make lace designs that this outer satin stitch is connected to the mesh, because otherwise it will go into pieces when you dissolve the stabilizer at the end. So it's very important, and the reason why this is possible is that the fabric solvi here is still tight as a drum. Yeah, and on the back you can see that I used the same color thread for my bobbin, so it looks nice on both sides. So let's continue with the roof, and for that one, as I told you before, I like to mix shiny and matte threads. So this one is from Smart Thread. Her threads are very beautiful and very shiny. So I'm going to use an anthracite gray for the roofs. They are not mesh, and I do not put anything underneath the stitches. They are freestanding fill stitches, so they are a bit heavy, and your machine might sound a bit rough when stitching these, but it's manageable and they look great afterwards. So off we go with the roofs. Well, I finished the 4 birdhouses here, and at first glance they look okay. However, when I tip the frame, I can see, and you can also hear, that actually the outline, the satin outline, hasn't gotten hold of the roof itself on the top birdhouses. It's okay at the bottom, but the top birdhouses, I think the reason is that I have only used one layer of water soluble, and these roofs here, they are very dense, so there is a lot of pull effect to this material, to the stabilizer. And luckily, that's how you get smarter, by learning by doing, right? So now I know, and the reason why I'm showing you this is to explain that it is, after all, this was an experiment. After all, it is a good idea if you want to make more in the hoop lace elements in one hoop, to put a double layer of stabilizer under them, because it is only thread that is going to hold together these designs. Are they then totally wasted, all that thread, the mylar and everything? No, because in general, most of the things here are connected. And when I dissolve the stabilizer, they will still be generally connected. Only up here at this side of the roof, there is a problem. And I've done this before, so I know that I will be able to, with a thread similar or the same as I used for the roof, I can do it by hand so that everything is usable after all. But bottom line is a double layer of stabilizer if you are making more lace objects in the same hoop, because of the pull effect on these heavy areas of stitches. It's nice to be smarter. I have now unhooped the birdhouses, and then I'm going to cut them out roughly from the stabilizer here, so that only a little excess stabilizer is around each house. And then I'm going to dissolve the rest of the water soluble in a water bath of lukewarm water, and then I will dry the birdhouses flatly on a tea towel afterwards. Luckily I have a fireplace, so I'll just put them there, and then I'll be ready to show you how they look after they have dried and after all the stabilizer has been dissolved. So next step is the dissolving of the material. Before I go on with my bath of warm water, I will just show you a little behind the scene here, where you can see the yellow and red areas are where the threads meet. So they are areas with a high density. If they are totally red, it's very dense, but here it's okay. And it also tells me, I will click on this one, it also tells me that they actually are overlapping, so that it will work when I stitch out these. The thing with the ones that I just showed you is that because I had 4 in the same hoop and only 1 layer of stabilizer, the pull effect was stronger than the stitches here. You could also in the design have made the satin outline wider, but then again it becomes more clumsy. And I know this works, I just have to stabilize well. And that's the lesson to be learned today. And I'm glad I did. And I'm also glad to be able to show you how it works. Here is my bowl of warm water. Here are my birdhouses, and I simply put them in the water. Could put them one at a time, but I can also put all 4 in the water together. And then I gently, oh, I'll have to move a little back so that you can see. I gently dissolve at the edges the stabilizer all the way around. And as you can see, I also removed the stabilizer in the center. Here, there are some threads here. I will cut them off and melt them away afterwards to make a nice crisp outline to my birdhouse. I just press it a little, no ringing, and then over to my tea towel here at the side. I'll just turn the camera a little and you can see it's here next to me. Take the next one, do the same there, and here you can see there are little areas where it didn't quite meet the fill stitch, but they will work, I'm sure. And here, this one, the green one is perfect. No areas where it hasn't met the fill stitch, so the green one is perfect. And the turquoise one, also only few areas where it is not entirely overlapping. Nothing to be worried about. So all in all, I'm quite content with this. There are only very few issues. Here you can see the birdhouses laying flat here on my tea towel, and now they're going to dry flatly here. So till later. Now my little lace birdhouses are dry and they are quite sturdy, as you can see. They would also be if I hadn't put the mylar in them. So the lace and the satin stitches will keep it stiff. Now I'm going to trim it. And do you remember I told you that because I had 4 of these in one hoop, the pull in my material, my stabilizer, I only used 1 layer, if you remember, and I prefer to use 2. It was just an experiment. Is these little holes, maybe you can see them at the edge here with the satin does not meet the roof entirely. This is so little that in this case I wouldn't do anything about it. I will just leave it. And now I'm going to trim. I do not trim with a scissor. If the threads are very long, I trim a little, but I like to trim with a lighter or a flame instead, because then the thread simply melts. And be careful that you do not burn it, and be careful not to make it black. It doesn't look nice. So just carefully trim with your lighter so that it is nice and neat. The house is ready for hanging in on a branch or wherever you like to have it. I've made some little rings here to attach to the top of the house. I showed you yesterday, and I'm going to close them as well as I can, not overlapping, just like this. It won't fall off. And then I have made these little ones. I love swirls. I have taken some of my favorite little driftwood sticks and attached a hook around up here to hang, and then below here I have twisted it, and then at the end I have put on these lovely beads. Someone asked me, where did you get these gorgeous beads? Well, they are from a necklace that a friend of mine gave me years ago, and I simply had to have that necklace at that time, but for years I haven't used them. So now it's time to use these beautiful beads, and they are going to be embellishing my string of lights with the birds, and I will show you later. So this is how I mount my little houses, on a swirl and with beads. My birds have also gotten hangers, so I'm almost ready for making my string of light look springish. Till later.